The topic for today is going to be my takeaways from the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. So highly recommended book. Shout out to head assistant coach in HFP, Brandon, for kind of putting me on for this book and reading it. And it's very, I think this book is tremendously effective in terms of if you want to make habits, in terms of doing something that you want to accomplish. A lot of people really benefit from Atomic Habits in terms of fitness goals. And then for me, in terms of reading goals, in terms of business goals, there's a lot of good stuff here that is not just fit into one singular domain like fitness, business, etc. It's very applicable skills and routines that can be used to pretty much to anything you set your mind to. So that's why I really enjoyed this book. So let's go over my 18 takeaways. Number one, the first takeaway that I have. My first takeaway, and so a lot of these are going to be quotes from the book, but takeaway number one is going to be what he said in the book is, I believe I accomplished something just as rare. I fulfilled my potential. So this is James Clear talking about his baseball career. And I thought it was really interesting. And I felt that this was very useful for a lot of people in terms of like, what are we trying to accomplish? Are all of us going to become professional baseball players if we set our minds to it? Not necessarily. But I found this very useful for me in terms of like, what are we looking to like positively reinforce? And it's typically going to be hard work. So let me share over the Jamboard, which apparently Google told me is going to be going away soon. So anybody have a whiteboard, let me know which one I should use. So James Clear said, I believe I accomplished something just as rare. I fulfilled my potential. And what I liked about this quote, again, this was, I think James Clear was talking about, he was a baseball player early in his life. And I think that he like didn't go pro or he didn't play after college, but he wasn't a great player back when he was in high school or so. He actually had to really, work hard at becoming very good at baseball. And so it took a lot of training. It took a lot of him making the habit of training and showing up consistently and learning the game on a deeper level. And so for him, he was very proud that he just felt that he maxed out like what his physical attributes allowed him to do. And so I think that this should be the goal for most people rather than like, okay, did you win the game or not? Maybe the other team is more talented than you, but you pushed yourself. You worked as hard as you can. You did your hardest effort and you showed up in a strong way. Just like in the gym or like a powerlifting meet. Let's say like you're on year 5 of training and you're in a bodybuilding show and you don't place, but the person who beats you is like 15 years deep. But you did the thing. You got as lean as you could. You got the controllables controlled. You can't outwork 10 years of more time in the game. So I think that this should be the target. And that was one of the takeaways that I got from this book that I just really enjoyed. My second takeaway, and this one you may have heard this quote plenty of times before, but it was put in the book, and I think it's a really useful one too. So 1% better daily is 37 times better in a year's time. So when people talk about, let's talk about gym specifically. We're going to talk gym specifically. So 1% better daily is 37 times better in a year. And this is why when I've seen people go through like, fitness programs, they're like, oh, I only added 1 rep this week. I only added 5 pounds this week. I didn't add 20 pounds in terms of my bench press PR. But the thing is, you stretch that out long enough. And if you're hitting a PR every week in a certain exercise, this 250 pounds you're going to add over the course of that year is just staying in the game. 1 rep added, let's say every week, is going to be 4 reps per month. You can probably increase the weight that you're training with for the same amount of reps, probably every 4 weeks, every month. So also you're going to add 60 pounds on that exercise. So these little wins, which is often all we're able to do, is just like really, pull in these small W's. These lead to big leaps of progress. And let's take on any big project. So I run a lot of retreats with HFP. Hey, shout out to Healthy Flex Prescription. I'm putting on a retreat very shortly. We just finished our internal retreat last week. You don't just knock out a whole retreat in one day, just like you don't write a whole book in one day. This is something that probably took years. But the way that it happened is making the most of every single day or every single week. For me, putting on an event with our HFP clients, we're going to be in the Smoky Mountains. Excited about it. But it's like, where are we going to eat? What hikes are we going to do? What day are we going to go? How is the team flying over there? What airline are we going? What do we need to stock at the HQ? Where is HQ going to be? But like, if I take these 7 tasks that need to be done and I just knock off 1 per week at a time, eventually the thing happens. But it isn't just something you knock out in one day. So a lot of people too, when it comes to fitness, they're like, man, I have 135 pound bench press today, and they expect tomorrow to bench 315. No, to hit 315 in bench, you need to first hit 185, 190, 225. Same thing in weight loss. You're not just going to wake up and be 30 pounds down. It's going to take losing the first pound, then the second, then hit 5. So a lot of times we can get fixated on that end goal, but it's the little goals that we could contribute on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, that add up to these big leaps of progress. Number three takeaway from the book, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Number 3 is going to be focus on systems, not goals. And the quote that I like from the book is, you don't look at the scoreboard all game long. So I just thought that was a really good depiction, or a really good visual of kind of like, goals are cool and everything, but me and Nicole have had this conversation a couple times, but like a lot of people will celebrate the act of setting a goal. I want to have a $5 million business this next year. And everyone's like, good, that sounds really hard. But sometimes we can get into a situation where like, I want to run a marathon, clap, clap, clap. I want to bench press 405, clap, clap, clap. And we sometimes forget that the reason these goals are cheered on for setting is because it's a commitment to the hard work to be done. It's not just the goal that we set, it's the hard work that goes into achieving that goal. And that's why it makes it such a beautiful thing of having hard goals, because it takes hard work. And that's why a lot of things are respected, because I think across all cultures, we respect hard work. And so that being said, when we in this case, like focusing on systems, not goals, it's kind of like if we're so fixated on just the goal and not what we're actually doing, the system, in terms of like basketball, if you're not focusing on putting the ball in the net, but you're just looking at the scoreboard is going to stay at 0. It's like our goal is to hit 50 points. But like, if you forget to dribble the ball and train those systems of scoring a basket, then you could be, wasting a lot of mental energy or just not allocating it properly. Because when you, and the kind of the standpoint, or like the point James Clear was trying to make is, to get the outcome, you need to just make strong systems. When the systems are your focus, the outcome comes. When the outcome is all you're fixated on and focused on, then like the action can kind of be forgotten. So that's where I feel like it's important, because sometimes, especially I guess in the culture of like, American culture, I guess I would say, sometimes the meme is we're always setting goals, we're always trying to achieve. But sometimes it's like, we don't just want to be cheered on for setting a goal, but cheer on the systems. Cheer, if you want to run a marathon, clap for yourself and hitting that first mile ran, because you won't run a marathon without hitting that first run. Number 4, winners and losers have the same goal. This is kind of just like more background for number 3. And that's just like, winners and losers have the same goal, but it depends on the strength of their systems, their strategy, and the actions taken. So again, it's like, don't get fixated on just goal setting, but like system setting. How are we going to get there? In HFP, we have a focus on, like, a lot of people want to lose, let's say 15 pounds of body fat. But if we're just fixated on losing 15 pounds of body fat, we got to do what's, we only live at one time, and that's in the moment. That's in the right now. And so we have to do something with our hands. And so we have to focus on the actions, and then we'll get to that goal. Next up, so in HFP, kind of where I was going, it was we focus on our system. It's called 7-4-1. 7 days logging your nutrition, being within 100 calories of the calorie target, 4 workouts per week, and show up to your check-in or check-in. As long as we focus on that system and building a win streak, we're going to hit the goal eventually. Number 5, achieving, this was a cool one. Achieving a goal is temporary. You cleaned your room. But if you still have messy habits, it will be a mess again. So this kind of goes into, again, systems. So if you clean your room, but your system is still that it's going to be a mess again, like, you have a temporary solution. But if you focus on a system where, okay, every Monday, 9 a.m., or no, cleaning your room. So Monday at 6:30 is going to be, I drop everything, 15 minutes, you're going to clean my room. And if that's your system on a weekly cadence, then it never actually gets messy again. That's focusing on a system rather than just like, okay, I'm just going to do the thing now. So it's just going to be a temporary solution. So this also comes from when it's in fitness. It's like, I'm just going to do a 30-day program and like, I'm going to fix everything in 30 days or less. You may lose 5, may lose 10 pounds, but then like, what do you do after there? Are you just going to be back in the ocean floating with the waves and just going where things take you? Or like, what is your system from there? So it's important to focus on systems that also are sustainable for you. You can keep having that long-term success. Number 6, my 6th takeaway from the book Atomic Habits. Number 6 is going to be man chews fingernails a lot. Gets a manicure. Told he has beautiful nails. Starts valuing them. Stops chewing them. And this I found interesting. So a person in the story chews his fingernails a lot, something that I think he wanted to stop doing. He got a manicure, told he was beautiful, had beautiful nails, starts valuing them, and then he stopped chewing on them. So he kind of took pride in that thing. So took pride in that. So this is just kind of something like you can maybe be a strategic partner with somebody, like kind of compliment them. It reminds me a little bit of the Gandhi quote, be the change you want to see. And so maybe it's also giving someone the compliment, positively reinforcing something, and that can help people, start valuing it to a greater degree, or just taking pride in something. Like if I said, like I saw somebody just scrolling social media, I was like, oh, that person has nice eyebrows. It's like you can tell they take care of it. And then so if you positively reinforce that, if I give a compliment like, hey, you're taking care of your eyebrows, nice eyebrows or something. I don't know, you plug it or something, or like you wax it. I don't know. Your boy doesn't do the greatest job. But with that being said, I found it interesting because like with this story, it's just like we can really value things that we are positively reinforced from. And so that's how we like start taking pride in them. So we can even be in the way we dress. If there's like something that you want to improve and you start dressing a certain way, like you wear tighter sleeves, now you start, identifying with someone with, big arms. So you're going to make more of those actions more in alignment to those things you value or take pride in. The next one, 7. 7 is habits I love this one, are simply reliable solutions to reoccurring or recurring, whatever, we'll go with this one, problems in our environment. Habits are simply reliable solutions to reoccurring problems in our environment. I love this because it just talked about like what is the basis of the developing habits. It's usually there's a problem that we want to make a habit for, and then there's kind of that solution. So let's say if it was smoking, some people drive, like why does the habit of smoking even start? Because some people feel a relaxation from it. And then that becomes a habit for getting into a relaxed state. Be that what it is in terms of negative health outcomes, but that's kind of why those habits start. There's usually a problem that consistently occurs, and then kind of we get associated with a certain solution. So in terms of fitness, having the habit of training on a weekly basis, on a routine basis. So the problem is I don't want to not be strong. I don't want to have my 1 rep max being less than going up a stair up the stairs. I want to have I don't want to have not strong bones. So these are some problems. So we want to have that habit occur. And so these are kind of the ways to like, why are habits actually important? Because it's ways we systemize solving reoccurring problems. So that is going to be number 7. Now, the next one is going to be number 8. So this is a quote from Carl Jung. And what Carl said was, I love this one. This was probably one of my favorite takeaways. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Bars by Mr. Carl. So it is until you make the unconscious conscious, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So sometimes we have these tendencies, and I think this is really cool in terms of charisma. So we just had our internal retreat and we did a piece on charisma. Like, what is charisma? This is something that Alex Hormozi broke down and made it a little bit granular. Because when it's this thing that people have or they're not, oh, that person's lucky they're so charismatic. But it's like, well, what does that mean? And I liked how Hormozi started to break that down. It's like nod when someone speaks, address people by their name. It is smile when you walk into a room, greet other people. And then also, I think Robert Cialdini has spoken on these things too, kind of like, how do you make a positive impression? You be friendly, you smile, you laugh at people's jokes. If I say a really bad joke and people laugh, I'm like, wow, I like that person. So that, I thought this is really useful in the way that when we make charisma or likability, when we make that now actionable and we make it a conscious effort, now we can actually improve that thing. So same thing with, like, if you have negative habits, the first step is being aware, like tracking your nutrition on MyFitnessPal. If you start tracking what you're eating, you made it conscious. Now everything is a conscious decision. Now things are conscious inputs. We have seen people in HFP lose 10 pounds before we even started day one. Just because the homework before the program starts is just track your normal eating, don't change a thing. And people tend to lose weight because it's just they make the unconscious conscious. So when people say, how do I lose weight? What is the first step you would recommend? I would say just start logging your food. Because as Mr. Carl said, make the unconscious conscious. Number 9. We must first become aware of our habits before we can change them. That's kind of a follow-up to the previous one in terms of, you have to become aware of it. So with everything is awareness is the first step. Just being aware of the decisions we make, start having objective things. So let's say finances. You want to improve your finances. You're budgeting. You're like, I don't have money to invest left at the end of the month. And then what would you do? You build awareness to the decisions. Where is this money going? How much am I taking in on a monthly basis? How much is going out? What is my car payment? What is the mortgage? And then you start finding, for me in 2020, it was like, why is 60% of my income going to Uber Eats? Maybe there's something here where I can make better decisions to get those better outcomes. But I wouldn't have known that unless I have that data staring me in the face. Same thing when people, have to log the Pop-Tarts. Like, dang, these 2 Pop-Tarts were 400 calories. That was just a little snack I had when breakfast was also an actual meal, and that was 400 calories. So again, make the conscious, and that's the first step. So logging, tracking, a lot of those things. When the data stares us in the face, that's going to be useful for us to make those changes. This is one that we started implementing in HFP with me and the coaching team. Implementation intention. Implementation intentions. So this increased, so let's go 35% to 91%. People got their workouts in. So I just said it in a different way. But when we set implementation intentions, this helps people just like commit to their commitments a lot on a stronger basis. So what is an implementation intention? So pretty much all it is in the case in the workout context is I will work out on what day at blank time at blank place. And we use this strategy a lot in HFP. And probably we may have some HFPers listening live, and they may have even heard me say this in setting goals, or one of the HFP team members saying this in terms of setting goals. Implementation intention. So let me give you an example. If I say, hey, I want you to work out 4 times this week. It's like, yeah, I can do that. I have 7 days. I can probably figure it out. No. I want you, like, what day are we going to do our next workout? Tomorrow I have time at like 7 a.m. Okay, so 7 a.m. tomorrow, what are we working out? Let's do upper day. Okay, so tomorrow, what gym? I'm going to go to LA Fitness. Okay, so tomorrow, 7 a.m., you're going to be at the gym, LA Fitness, and you're going to get your workout in. Okay, cool. And then we do the same thing for the other ones. Because now it becomes so much more real. You've already visualized it happening. And a lot of times that's what it takes. And we saw this in that statistic. It increased by, if we're using relative risk or absolute risk, it went 31% to 91% or so, 35% to 91%. So that's like a 60% relative, I think that is, or absolute. Or we could say, if we want to clickbait you, a almost 3x increase in people getting their workouts done. But that shows how powerful it is just to set the intention and just start to visualize the thing actually happening. Hey, I want to eat better. But what does that mean? So if we get a little bit more specific, what does healthy eating mean to you? Eating less junk, eating more fruits and vegetables. Oh, okay, cool. So Do you have fruits and vegetables in your house? Not really. I have apples like on the counter. Okay, cool. So like, let's go to the store. Let's grab some bags of salad. Can you have a salad tomorrow? Okay, cool. So now we start making these kind of like big concepts, just like hosting a retreat, just like a big project you're working on. Now I make it into little step-by-steps and we get very specific. Now the things are more likely to happen. So this is something I've been trying to apply in terms of, goal setting and make things very, very tangible and very reasonable to actually accomplish. So being more specific and kind of getting that visualization accomplished. Number 11. Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. I just kind of explained the above, but I'll put it in what I have. I will behavior at time at location. And that's going to be an implementation intention. So like I will work out at 6 p.m. for 1 hour at my local gym. 12. This is going to be habit stacking. So this is something I use to make sure that I started moisturizing my face more often because Nicole has some better genetics for aging. Your boy, when I'm like 80, I could be pretty wrinkly. I mean, my genetics are not like ideal for aging. So habit stacking is going to be after current habit, I will new habit. So you're linking two habits together. So for me, what this worked very well for me was I was terrible at flossing. I'm gonna out myself. I was terrible for flossing. I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. But I was terrible at flossing for the first 28 years of my life. I got roasted at the dentist one day and I was like, okay, I should really like figure out like a system for getting this. So one, instead of like the annoying floss that I would pull and like make all the stuff and it was just annoying and not practical, I got those little pick things where it's just super easy to do. And where did I put that? I put it in the environment where I'm already brushing my teeth. So right next to my toothbrush has this bag of these flossers. So then I started to build a win streak because I stacked the habits of brushing my teeth, which I never miss. And I stacked that habit with flossing. And I said, before I brush my teeth, I'm going to do this. Habit stacking. Same thing in the mornings. Now, also next to my toothbrush. So now I have like a 4 to 5 step morning routine. I have my cologne, which I started wearing. I got my face SPF moisturizer for the morning. So I do that. It's next to my toothbrush as well. So I made all these things. I stacked these habits together of things that I think are going to have a long-term benefit, just like having some moisturizer with that SPF 15 in it. So if there's things you want to, make more of something you do consistently, stack it to something that is already a habit. And that could be useful for you as well. Number 13. We got, this one's bars. The people with the best self-control are typically the ones who need to use it the least. I'm partial to many of these, but this one really resonated to me. And I think I was listening to some podcasts recently where they're just saying like, and we even say this in kind of the onboarding conversation we have in HFP. But when it comes to this situation of willpower, we all have limited willpower. And so the people that get the most things of like being disciplined people, it's just they use their willpower the least. For me, I set 10 alarms at 4 a.m. to get me out of bed. And I've kind of, now it's pretty routine, but I just make it so easy to go downstairs, eat a quick meal, and then get over to the gym. It's already in my calendar. So it doesn't take willpower to decide when I'm going to train. It's already in my calendar where it's already a decision made. So the less decisions we have to make on the go and have to pick this or that. But if you heard the quote, it's easier to be 100% than 99% because it's just all in. I am going to get the workout done. It's not even a question. When we give ourselves the out sometimes, that can make it more difficult. If the food isn't even in the fridge, it's easier to then not have to use willpower to not eat the cookie. So setting up our environment, my biggest takeaway from Atomic Habits is utilize the setup of your environment and set that up for success for yourself. So again, the dental floss next to my toothbrush, the vegetables at eye level in the refrigerator, the not cookies staring me in the face every day where I have to willpower use, not eating it every time. So set up your environment, and that's going to make sure that you don't have to rely on willpower. You're relying on systems, kind of as we mentioned a little bit earlier. Next up, we got running out of space here. Number 14 is going to be we crave the expectation of reward. We crave the expectation of reward. That's what sets off dopamine. And this comes to like, why are we such goal-setting beings? You hit a goal that you've had for the last 5 years, you hit it, and then you're just like, okay, what's next? It's usually not as satisfying as we thought it would be. It's just, sometimes it's fun to just have these far-arcing goals that you're slowly making progress to, because like when you get there, it's typically not, it's not, it can be great. You may have like a nice dinner, you may like throw yourself like a party and stuff, but it's typically like, it's on to the next thing. You make a new goal, and that's kind of what happens. And so this kind of, we can play with our own psychology. Like, how do we make this something we can use kind of human nature to our own success, control our tendencies to see better outcomes. And so that I just found to be very interesting overall. So is there a way where I can reduce the size of this text? We're gonna figure it out in live. Nope, just change the color. No, we got this. So we're going to go into number 15. What number 15 is going to be another, it's a quote by Victor Hugo. Boom, here we go. So the next one, number 15, is going to be, actually it's not a quote by Victor Hugo, but he wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And so he locked all of his clothes away. So he only wore a shawl, so that he had no proper clothes to leave the house. So that he to a degree, he couldn't leave the house because he just didn't have anything to wear, because he took a lot of pride in his appearance in terms of what he wore. And so because of this, he said that he would not be able to unlock the clothes until he completed his book, because he noticed that he kept putting off the writing of the book. And so he had to use his own nature against himself. So he predetermined his decision. He said, I am not going to allow myself, just because I take pride in like the way that, I dress. So when I leave the house, I want to be seen in that way. I can't have that contrast of my image. So he only put himself in a shawl, or something he wouldn't want to be seen wearing in public. And so this made him pretty much lock himself in a room until he finished reading The Hunchback of Notre Dame. And then he was seen, out and about, probably got some new clothes, and was looking, of course, very spiffy afterwards. But this is, again, it's predetermining kind of our decisions ahead of time. And so with that being said, my next one, it's going to be number 16. Is this the story? Yes. Okay. So commitment devices. This last one was kind of a commitment device. So commitment device. And so this is a story from the Odyssey. So Ulysses from the Odyssey. I think I'm spelling that probably incorrectly, but it's okay. So what happened is, a commitment device is locking in your future actions when your mind is right, rather than waiting to see where your desires take you in the moment. Bars. And so the story of Ulysses is, he was a sailor, I think, in the book. And so what he had his crew do is he tied himself down to like a pole so that he would hear the crying or the singing of the sirens. And he knew that he was going to have that tendency to steer the boat towards the sirens and wreck the whole ship. So he had his team, his crew, tie him back so he would hear these things, and he predetermined that he would not drive the ship into the rocks, into the sirens. And so that kind of just shows us, kind of as Victor Hugo did, a commitment device. When our brain is clear and we can make these actions, and I have a fitness metaphor on this. When our brain is clear and we can make a rational judgment with our long-term goals in mind, do something that locks you into that decision. Fitness context. If you're going out to Cheesecake Factory tonight, rather than wait and see where your desires lead you in that moment, which is probably a 1,500 calorie piece of cheesecake because it's delicious. But if we want to lose body fat, we need a calorie deficit. So what you would do before is look at the menu beforehand while you're sitting at home and you're not under, maximum desire. You can make your decision based on there with like your long-term goals in mind, and you can pre-plug that in to MyFitnessPal. The decision is already made. So when we make these decisions, kind of like through a commitment device, where we make that decision when our mind is clear and our willpower, our discipline's at its highest, rather than in an environment of desire, you're going to make better decisions. You're going to have better outcomes. And then you just stick with those decisions. So that I've seen, especially with our clients, be very useful for, going out to eat. It's just look at and I do this all the time. I look at the menu before I actually go there, and I tend to make better decisions because I was able to predetermine those decisions or make them ahead of time. Number 17, what is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. So this one's interesting. And I think that a lot of people that are into like training dogs or like, et cetera, it's proximity. So like, let's say your dog, you got a puppy. Maybe it's an adult dog. Maybe they're like 4 years old and they pee in the house. But then an hour later you find it and then you say, then you kind of give negative reinforcement. You're like, hey, don't do that. You got to go outside now, et cetera, et cetera. And they see you get upset. They're not going to know what happened in the last hour that they did that made you upset. But when you decrease that proximity, or I guess, you make that a closer time frame to, okay, you see the dog peeing and then you're like, no, cannot do that. And then you kind of give negative reinforcement. At least that proximity is there. So the same thing if you're trying to get a good habit in place. I think in the book, I think there was an example where some people, they wanted to spend less money at restaurants and they wanted to fund a future vacation. So every time they didn't order or go out to eat, they would put $50 in a jar immediately when that decision got made or that successful decision. So they got this kind of quick feedback loop of like, okay, this feels good. I didn't do the thing. I did what I wanted to do. And then they get the feedback because they see that the cash stack up. So that's another piece too when trying to build those habits. Proximity of that positive reinforcement, proximity of negative reinforcement. So kind of timing becomes pretty important as well. Finally, number 18, the final takeaway I have from Atomic Habits. Number 18 is going to be the first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It is the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. So that one, I think there's not much like kind of follow up on that one. That's just bars. So the first mistake is never the one that ruins you. It is the spiral of repeated mistakes that follows. Missing once is an accident. Missing twice is the start of a new habit. So it's kind of like there's going to be hiccups along the way, but it's just getting back on track. But when we start having repeated occurrences, repeated events, we start building new habits, new routines. So that's kind of when no formation of a new habit is going to be perfect, but you just have to outweigh kind of the times you step off and just kind of try to maximize the amount of time you're on your game. But remember, habits are being formed regardless if you track them or not. Just like calories count, if you track them or not, you're always forming habits. So what we want to do is bring it all the way back to the Carl Jung quote is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So be aware of your habits, be aware of what's going on, be aware that habits are being formed, and direct kind of human nature or utilize human nature to your benefit to create the habits that you want to have. So that's going to close out my 18 takeaways from Atomic Habits. Great book. If you haven't read it, highly recommend it. Read it in case you got fitness goals, business goals, or just goals in life. Very, very great book. Hey, give a stop.